So this is the first time. First time we played America, we came to New York, where there was a guy, a DJ here, who described himself as the fifth Beatle, a guy called Murray the K. We had this big show which ran for a week. It was called the Murray the K Concert Party or something, and we were hired to perform with Cream, Eric Clapton's band, and with other guests, various other guests. Wilson Pickett, Simon and Garfunkel were on. A whole number of different guests came and went. And we did 7 days, 4 shows a day. So we would start at about 11:30, do a show, do another one at 2:30, and so on. And at each show I was smashing a guitar. So I had to rebuild it in the gap. So I did a lot of gluing. I think we played Substitute, My Generation, and then My Generation I smashed my guitar. One of the things about it was that once you'd bought a ticket, you could stay all day if you like. So we actually built up this whole hardcore of Who fans who are still with us today, who saw every show. Yeah, well, that was a cosmic experience. It was at Blazes, a nightclub in London. Yeah, he was pretty amazing. I think you had to have seen Jimi Hendrix to really understand what he was about. I'd met him, of course, because he was on our record label. He'd come to the studio. He came with his manager, Chaz Chandler, who was the bass player in a band called The Animals. And Chaz had left and gone into management, discovered Jimi Hendrix, put a band together around him, and said, you know, Jimmy is, you know, unfamiliar with the kind of way that Cream and the Who work on stage with their equipment, and want some advice about amplifiers. So I said, well, I've been using Marshall. I helped develop them, but I think they're pretty cruddy. And I found this new amplifier called High Watt, which is treblier, and what I would suggest is you buy one of each. So he did. I think he settled on Marshall in the end, funny enough. But anyway, he started to play. And of course, he was a brilliant player, a wonderful player, and very inventive. But he had the most beautiful voice. He wasn't a great singer, but he had a beautiful voice, a smoky voice, a, you know, really sexy voice. And when I'd seen him in the studio, he had this military jacket on, which I suppose was supposed to evoke the hippie era. You know, he had a military jacket. It was all covered in dust and dandruff, and it just looked scruffy. And I thought, well, this guy may turn out to be okay, but he's no heartthrob. Anyway, was I wrong? You know, when you saw him in the live arena, he was like a shaman. It's the only term I can use, and I don't know whether it's the right term. Light seemed to come out of him. He was you know, he would walk on the stage and suddenly he would explode into light, and he was very graceful. You know, he just did this thing with his arm where he would move, and he used his tongue, and his fingers were, you know, he didn't just play good notes. What he played appeared to be very graceful. He was like almost like an orchestral musician. A little later, I called up Eric Clapton and I said, you know, you've got to see this guy. He's on our label. You've got to see him. And we went to see him at the Nighttimer Club in London. And Jimmy was really impressed that Eric was in the audience and being set. And at one point, I can remember, you know, Eric and I with our hands linked together, and it felt like we were actually shaking hands. Just, you know, he was thanking me for bringing him. I wasn't crazy impressed with the Beatles when I first heard them, but I loved them. I did love them. They were joyful, they were funny, they were more a pop group than I would have liked. They had this incredible image. They were delightful. Yeah, absolutely delightful. Yeah, I remember them. I suppose the first song would have been Please Please Me. But the one that really blew me away, I can remember hearing it, we were doing a gig at a pub, and they played it, was Day Tripper. And I think on the other side was Paperback Writer. I'm just thinking, wow, these two songs are really, really great. They weren't about falling in love. They weren't about, you know, girl, 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 girl. You know, they were about jobs, creativity. They were interesting songs, those two, and I suddenly realized that they were going to do great things. I was 11 years old, and my friend Graham Beard and I had been to see Bill Haley at the Odeon in Edgware Road. We decided we were going to write a rock and roll song, and it was called Bubbles. and it was pretty good. I can't sing it, unfortunately, because I can't remember, but I remember it was pretty good. And we were really, really proud that we managed to write a song. And the next song that I wrote was much later, but that was published. That was a song called It Was You. That was in 1963. So late 63. In 1964, it was actually published by a band called The Naturals. It was you that made my life worth living. I never saw myself as a songwriter, professional songwriter, but I suddenly thought, hey, this is something that I can do. Pretty much day one. I really wanted it to be as brief as possible, and it hasn't been. And this is not a judgment on them, it's a judgment on me. The gang that I joined, that, as I said earlier, that I needed to be in was the gang that Roger Daltrey had. And the reason I wanted to be in his gang is because he was tough and feared and a bit of a bully. And he's not that guy anymore, but he was at the time. He was really, really strong in the music scene in Acton, where we grew up in West London. And I just thought I'd be safe with him. You know, as a weak little kid with a lot of childhood abuse issues and bullying issues, and I just wanted to be protected by him and in his group. And John Entwistle, who was my best friend, I'd started playing music with John when I was late 11, just about to turn 12. Well, the first time we went to secondary school. So I was in a really nice group of people, but immediately we started to work, I realised this is not a job that I like. I didn't like the travelling. I didn't like being on stage, I didn't like performing, I didn't like the fact that it all seemed to be about, you know, the other guys in the band just wanted to get girls. It didn't feel like art to me, and I'd been at art school. So I was interested in art, not money, art, not women. And in any case, the women could not be better than the women that you get at art school. You know, they were fabulous, and I married one of them. So I didn't need to go there. I don't know anyway, I didn't like it. So pretty much from day one, and I can remember the first time, for example, that I felt that I did like it. And I think that was probably quite a way down the road. You know, it might have been even around the time that we were first started to work in the USA, playing places like the Fillmore and the Electric Factory in Chicago, the Boston Tea Party, where we were allowed to stretch out, we were allowed to explore, and then finding, wow, when I do something amazingly audacious on the guitar, Keith, the drummer, and John, the bass player, they follow me. They know, they sort of read me. They know what I'm going to do. They know what's in my head. So we had this real connection, and that felt to me that was something special. So I started to think of them not as a couple of yobbos, which I had thought prior to that, but as musicians, and musicians that belonged to me, that I was a part of. And now with Roger Daltrey to this day, you know, I'm in another first time, which is the first time for me of finding myself on stage with him and having a real conviction that this is the one guy that I can be on stage with, that we can do a fantastic job together. And there's nobody else that I could work with that would be better. It was when the punk movement came along, and of course that was their mission. It wasn't really to conquer, it was to destroy, and they did. I love the punk movement because it's, of course, I wanted The Who to be. I always wanted The Who to last for 6 months and then disappear so I could go back to art school and a decent life. But yeah, I remember after going to see Generation X and Susie and the Banshees, just thinking, wow, this is what we used to do. And they're doing it again. They're not doing it quite as well as we did it, but they're doing it really, really well, and they're young, and Keith Moon, in fact, took me to my first punk concert. He'd had the courage to go, and I'd never had the courage to go. We went to see Generation X, which was Billy Idol's band. Billy Idol, as he still is today, was very, very charming. But, you know, the audience was spitting on us. It felt like we were doomed. The songs that I wrote around that time are interesting because they're really quite complex. You know, like this Music Must Change. My music must change. And No Road Romance, which was a song which is not on any albums, but it was added to the Who Are You album. And Who Are You as well. Who Are You is not about God necessarily, it is about God, but it's also about who are you, you know, who are you to come and take our mantle. It's about really not knowing where you are and who you are at that particular time. And in 1975, 76, I really didn't know who I was going to be next. So that was the first time. There may have been times before that, but I think that was the first time.